was born outside of Reading, Pennsylvania, and my parents, Yaini and Alexandra, they came from a small village in Greece called Gatuna, and my dad actually came from a village above that called Vustri that no longer exists. He came over in 1951. He had lost his father in 1926 when he was 5, and he came over here with his youngest sister, Theopostolia, and he left behind his mom and his middle sister, Theanthula. He had 6 or 7 aunts and 1 uncle. And his one uncle, Uncle Nick Lountzis, came over to the States, and he was a real entrepreneur. He opened restaurants in Denver, Boston, and then he settled outside of Reading and opened what was called Nick's Chatawile. And so my father, when he came over, started working at Berkshire Knitting Mills, which was one of probably the biggest knitting mill in the world. It was run by the Toon and Johnson families in Reading, in Wyomissing. And then he did that for a while, and then he went to work at the restaurant. He started in the kitchen, and then he liked being out in the bar much better, so he became a bartender. And he did that for almost 40 years. And my mom, the way my mom met my dad, my mom was the second of 4 daughters to Yaini and Vasiliki Kaliga. And in Greece, they had to wait for the first daughter to get married. And then the youngest daughters, Thea Elaine and Thea Kiki, went to gymnasio. My mom didn't, but what my mom did, her father was the headmaster of the village. And there were some of the communities that were miles away that didn't have schools. So he would go teach in these other villages. And my mom would go with him and take care of him. And so when he went to the Vustri up in the mountains to teach, my mom went with him to take care of him. That's where she met my dad. After my dad became a citizen in 1955, he asked for my mom to come over. And her mother wouldn't let her go. Her father said yes. And we didn't know this till I was over there in the summer of 2019, but Thea Kiki was still alive. And so I wanted to go see her. She lived in the same home. So we went and saw her, and she told me, I didn't know this, that my mom, at 1 o'clock in the morning, she snuck out of the house and made her way to Athens and got on a boat. And I don't know how she did it, because when you went back then, there were 2 ferry boats. You had to cross 2 waters. Now there's a highway. But she made her way, and she came to the United States in 1955, and they got married. They hadn't seen each other in 4 years. But, they were in love, and then in March of 56, they had my sister Christina, and then in June of 57, they had twin girls, Elaine and Mary, and then in 60, they had me, and then in 64, they had my brother John. So they were just really, really good people. They really worked hard. When I turned 10 in 1970, my mom said to my dad, we just don't have enough resources to educate the kids, so I'm going to go get a job. So she went and got a job at a sewing machine doing piecework for Duvid and then Talbots. And so my mom, did that for like 30 years as a sewing machine operator, and that's how they raised us. They worked very, very hard. They were great people. My mom never missed a day at church. Even during the week, when there's holidays that I don't even remember. She was there every Sunday, and we went. I was an altar boy. All of us were in church. They were great role models. It's not just what people say, it's what they do. And they really lived, good lives. They were just really good people, and they were really funny. And my mom and my dad never missed a day of work, and my mom, same thing. And then what she did was she would get up at about 4:30 in the morning, and then she would go to work at 6. She would do piecework, and then she would leave at 2 o'clock and come home. And I still remember she'd watch One Life to Live on TV, and then she'd watch General Hospital from 3 to 4, and then she'd go to the restaurant and eat with my dad, and then she'd go to a lot of our sporting events. We were all pretty reasonably good athletes. My sisters played field hockey, and I played football for 4 years at Reading Central Catholic, and you'll love this. Imana Mirthi Protimera. There were 800 kids, And I didn't know very many people. I knew a couple kids from my neighborhood, but I didn't go to parochial school. I went to public school from kindergarten to 8th grade. And so my mom came the first day, and think how embarrassing this was. She came to school with me and she went to every class with me the first day. And then at the end of the day, I said, Mom, this was really embarrassing. Why did you come to, why'd you do this? And she said, the priests and the nuns, they weren't going to make you Catholic instead of Greek Orthodox. And then when I was telling you about how she worked, she'd work till the afternoon, till 2 o'clock. She'd go watch her show. She'd go to dinner. And then she'd come home. She'd cook us dinner. And then she'd go down and read 2 or 3 hours. And then she'd fall asleep. And then my dad would come home at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning because he was a bartender. She would get up and make him a full meal and then go to bed and get up and do the same thing. She was extraordinary. I don't know how she did that. But she was great. She was very smart. She was creative. She was numeric. She understood numbers. She had great people skills. She had great intuition. She had one of the most formidable minds of any human being I've ever been around. And my dad was very smart too, but my mom was brilliant and tough. Like, for example, when we got married at the Greek Orthodox Church in Wyomissing, and we went to the river edge to have our reception. And she went to discuss with them, the cost and what they were going to offer for the wedding reception. And there was maybe 300 people at our wedding, which is a lot. And so Teddy was a heavyweight boxer, and he was so scared of my mom, he wouldn't come to the meeting. So his brother George came to the meeting, and George is saying, well, Alexandra, prepi ini 300 tagliera. I knew my mom was going to ask for less, but she said to him, I think $8-9 is good. So ultimately she ended up paying like $10 for something that should have been like $30. She was a tough cookie. It was 1981. And I went into a restaurant bar in Reading with some of my friends, and I saw this beautiful girl sitting over there, and I went up to her, and her friend a few hours later came out of the bathroom, and I said, is that your friend? And she said, yeah. I said, I'd like you to introduce me. So that's how I met my wife. And so we've been together now. This December will be 42 years. And this July we'll be married 38. She's wonderful. She's wonderful. She's Lutheran. She's not Greek. We have 4 great kids because of her. I was away a lot, but very special. Her name's Kelly. She's wonderful. My mom used to say to me, "Pandriani, and she's right. You have to get lucky. And I got lucky. And when I was 13 years old, I read about Buffett. He seemed really interesting. He was buying the Washington Post at the time. And that's when I first was introduced to him. And so I've started studying him, that whole time. And then when I took accounting and finance in college, that's when I could understand even more. It took me 8 years to graduate. I was working full-time at the hospital, doing blood tests and all that. Because what happened was when I went to Albright, I thought about becoming a doctor. And so I got a job at the hospital, but then I went to an autopsy and I fainted. So I didn't think it looked too promising. So I went back and got a finance degree. So I graduated when I was 26. I had been married for 1 year, and I went to work at a consulting firm. I worked with really great people there, very smart. And I did that for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And then I worked for Chuck Royce in New York, who was wonderful. He's a great money manager. And his partner, Tom Ebright, they were great to me. I worked for him for a few years. And then I went to work for Bill Ruane and Rick Kniff. Bob Goldfarb, Carly Kniff, marvelous people just like Chuck. And I spent almost 10 years there. I was a partner 6 or 7 years there. Bill was a very good friend of Buffett's. So while I worked for Bill, I got to do 5 projects through Bill for Mr. Buffett, which was really great. Try and think about who you are and what you enjoy, and try and do something that you really enjoy doing, whether it's financial or medical. And really think about, study people that are in the business you think you want to go into, and study them and see if that makes any sense. Try and do internships in the summer. You know, don't just go to the pool all summer. Go do internships with people that do what you think you want to do. And just keep learning, keep thinking. You know, think about what your qualities are. You know, like for example, if you really like people, you might want to do more in marketing. If you really like doing financial analysis and being by yourself, you might want to do that. And I tell students, what you should do is always work on your weaknesses. So if you're really good on financials, you should work on building your people skills. If you're really good with people skills, you should work on building your financials. Because at the end of the day, if you have good people skills and you have good financial analytical math skills, there's almost nothing you can't do. Banks it's a very challenging time for banks. You know, Silicon Valley went under, First Republic, Signature Bank, Silvergate. It's a very scary time. People are concerned about their deposits. You know, there's about $17 trillion. There was 18, now there's about $17 trillion in bank deposits. 10 billion are insured, 7 billion are not. If you're above 250,000, you know, so people are very concerned. It's a very valid concern. So you take, you know, the banks that have gone under, you take people are worried because of their investment portfolios are way down because interest rates went up. And so the investment portfolios they have are worth a lot less. That's a concern. People are worried about a recession and the credit quality. When you go into a recession, a lot of the loans banks have made go bad in commercial real estate. But I would also say too, hopefully no more banks are going to go under. Because see, what happens is when the deposits start leaving, that's how the banks get in trouble. And I think, you know, I don't know, I think the Fed should just say, you know, the deposits, they're safe. And then people wouldn't worry. I wouldn't dream of taking my money, let alone any client money, and putting it in Bitcoin. I don't understand it. I don't know how to value it. No way. What we try and do is we meet with people. When we first meet a prospective client, we don't even talk about money. We want to get to know them. Ti cani, ti famiglia, what are their goals? We do financial planning. So we try to sit down with them and really get to know them and see if they understand what we do. Do they understand investing? We have a long-term horizon. If they don't have a 5-year horizon, we don't want the money because things go up and down. And you don't want them coming to you to take money when the market's down. You want them to look out long-term, and it's hard for people because everything's instantaneous today. Twitter, you know, but at the end of the day, you got to be patient. And look, you can go buy a bank CD and you're going to get 4%. And it's going to be like this. Or you can invest in the market if you have the money, and it's going to be like this. But you're going to hopefully get a much higher return, but it's going to be like this. And if you can't deal with this, you shouldn't invest. We want to build relationships with families, people that we care about and that we like. So we know every client. We don't have a mutual fund, you know, where people just send in money and you don't know any of your clients. We know every client and their family, and we like it that way. And we don't think about, you know, becoming huge or anything like that. We just want to keep doing what we're doing and keep getting good clients that trust us and like us and understand us. And we do the same for them.